What if I told you that a simple 20-minute therapy, something rooted in really old traditions, could actually make a measurable difference in one of the world's biggest health crises? Okay, let's dive right into this and explore the pretty surprising science behind a technique that takes less time than your lunch break.
So, to really get why this research is a big deal, we have to understand the sheer scale of the problem we're up against. The diabetes epidemic isn't just some headline you skim past. It's a rapidly growing reality for millions and millions of people all over the globe. Let's start with a number. Just think about this for a second. Back in 2017, the International Diabetes Federation reported that a staggering 425 million adults were living with diabetes. That is an enormous number of people who have to manage their condition every single day. But that's not even the whole story. The projection is honestly even more alarming. By the year 2045, that number is expected to shoot up to 629 million. An increase that big just screams for new, effective, and, maybe most importantly, accessible ways to manage it. And that brings us to the main character of our story today, a traditional hydrotherapy treatment called the Gastro-Hepatic pack, or GHP for short. It's actually a staple therapy used in a lot of naturopathic hospitals, especially in India, to help manage diabetes.
So, what exactly is it? You might be picturing something really complicated, but it's deceptively simple. The GHP is just a technique that uses a hot pack over your abdomen and a cold pack on your back at the same time. That's it. Targeted heat and cold.
And here's how it's done, in 4 really basic steps. First, a hot water bag goes over the stomach. Then, an ice bag gets tucked under the lower back. A cotton cloth is then wrapped around the whole midsection to hold them in place, and finally, a woolen blanket goes over that to keep everything snug. That's the entire procedure. And here you can see the whole process from the actual study. Now, what's really interesting here is that even though this is a common, long-standing practice in some hospitals, the hard scientific evidence, the precise, measured effect it has on blood sugar, has been pretty limited. Well, until now.
And this is where science steps in. A team of researchers decided to take this traditional practice and put it under the microscope, really, to answer one very direct question. Does this thing actually lower blood sugar?
So for their first pilot study, they brought in 8 patients from a hospital in South India. Every single one of them had a known history of type 2 diabetes. The group's average age was around 51, and it was made up of 5 men and 3 women. The way they designed the experiment was super straightforward. Each person got just one 20-minute session with the Gastro-Hepatic pack, and the researchers carefully measured their blood glucose before, during, and at a few points right after the treatment.
Okay, so the stage is set. The test has been run. What did the numbers actually show? This is that cool moment where ancient tradition meets modern measurement.
I mean, this whole thing really comes down to one question, right? Did this simple, 20-minute, non-invasive treatment actually move the needle on blood glucose for these patients?
Okay, let's look at the data. Before the treatment, the average blood glucose was 160. Right after that 20-minute session, it dropped to about 149. And then, just 15 minutes later, it fell even further, down to about 140. That's not just a small dip. That is a clear and steady downward trend.
And this wasn't just a fluke. The study's authors found, and I'm quoting them here, a significant reduction in blood glucose levels. You know those p-values you see there? That's the statistical proof. It tells scientists that these results are really, really unlikely to be just random chance. It was a real, measurable effect.
So we know what happened, but the next big question is, why? I mean, how on earth can a hot pack and a cold pack on your torso actually affect your blood sugar? Let's dig into the possible reasons.
Think of it like managing traffic in your body. The hot pack on the abdomen opens up the local blood vessels, which ramps up metabolism and basically tells the skin and muscles underneath to start using up more glucose for energy. At the exact same time, the cold pack on the back tightens up the surface vessels, which might have this cool side effect of diverting more blood to deeper organs, like, say, the liver and pancreas, which are the key players in controlling blood sugar.
So, the researchers think this 1-2 punch could be setting off a whole cascade of good things, making your body's tissues better at grabbing and using glucose, maybe telling the liver to chill out and produce less of it, and potentially even boosting both insulin sensitivity and how much insulin gets released.
Okay, so let's zoom back out. Where does this all leave us? While this one study isn't offering a cure, it's a really promising first step.
It's about validating a traditional therapy with hard, modern science.
The big takeaway here is that the GHP could be useful as a complementary therapy. That word is so important. It's not a replacement for medication or lifestyle changes, but maybe another tool to add to the toolkit. But, and this is a big but, we have to remember this was a very small pilot study.
And it's really important to be honest about the study's limitations. A sample size of just 8 people is tiny. There was no control group to compare against, and we're only looking at what happened after one 20-minute session. All of this just means we need a lot more research to really confirm these findings and understand them better.
But it leaves us with a really fascinating and, I think, provocative question. In our constant high-tech search for new drugs and solutions for chronic diseases, could simple, accessible therapies like this one play a much bigger and more important role than we've ever given them credit for? Something to think about.